I won't lie, my expectations were very low for this one, but I'm pleased to report that Justice League is no worse than the most recent blockbuster superhero movies. In fact, I think it's a good bit better than Batman vs. Superman, though that wouldn't be all that difficult. I'll start by saying that I'm disappointed that DC Comics felt the need to follow Marvel's lead and create their own cinematic universe based upon the Justice League franchise in a manner similar to the Avengers movie series. I'm not interested in the DC versus Marvel feud. I don't have a preference for either. It just seems like DC are playing catch up with Marvel and doing exactly what they did. There's no difference between them at this point. I understand that this has nothing to do with creativity or originality and everything to do with making money, but I always felt DC had a little bit more to offer than Marvel. For example, Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight series, it demonstrated the kind of direction DC could have gone in, a more realistic, dark and adult tone, rather than a childish, colourful and CGI-filled mindless action affair. There's a reason why the Dark Knight trilogy will be revered in cinema history, but not the Avengers films, as fun as they may be. Nolan's films were genuinely good movies by any measure despite being based on comic books. The Avengers films are literally comic books brought to life. Pure popcorn affairs, entertaining but meaningless. And it's not like Marvel hasn't shown that it too is capable of producing a more real and relatable outing. 2016's Logan was the only Marvel movie in the same league as the Dark Knight franchise. It was unforgiving, gritty, heartbreaking, and believable. Now, I understand that there's a time and place for loud, special effects-filled, action-heavy movies, but the problem is that once you've seen one or two, you've seen them all. Most of them follow the same tired format and pattern, and the bigger and louder they get, the less of an impact they make over time. There's a kind of anesthetizing effect after a certain point. I'm numb to the massive action set pieces and spectacular visual effects shots, and there's only so many CGI world-ending, city-destroying scenarios and showdowns I can take before I'm utterly bored. Where's the story? Where's the characters? If you've seen the last two Avengers movies, Batman vs. Superman, Thor the Dark World, and the last two Captain America movies, and Wonder Woman, you've basically seen the Justice League. You could probably just take various scenes and set pieces from those films, splice them together, and build an approximation of this movie. It's that derivative. That doesn't mean it isn't a good time, but it's just a joke that a $300 million budget doesn't buy you an ounce of originality. So what's it all about? Well, a terrible CGI villain by the name of Steppenwolf and his CGI parademon army are trying to take over the world, and they've got a legitimate shot of doing so since the death of Superman in the last movie. As per a bog-standard plot device of such films, the villain has to get his hands on some stuff in order to help him do that. He needs the Allspark, or the Tesseract, or the Infinity Stones. Wait, no, they're called Mother Boxes in this one. Mother Boxes, that's right. Long story short, Bruce Wayne Batman begins assembling a team of superheroes to stop Steppenwolf. A team comprised of Wonder Woman, Aquaman, The Flash, Cyborg, and obviously Batman. There's not much else to say here, if I'm honest. I could go into detail describing the various important scenes leading up to the climax, but I'd literally be just describing the exposition at this point. As you're probably aware, Superman returns in this film. He's brought back from the dead using one of the Mother Boxes. He's absent from the first hour of the film, and when he's resurrected, he's not quite himself, flipping out and attacking the team until Lois Lane shows up and they have a somewhat heartfelt reunion in Smallville. Henry Cavill's portrayal is a little less wooden this time around. The character seems a little more likable, but still underdeveloped. Now, the real problem I have with Superman is that he's just too invincible. And when he's introduced into the story, the resolution is a mere formality. He's literally this film's deus ex machina. Because he's so much more powerful to the point of being like a god, so much more powerful to the rest of the team, he almost single-handedly helps them defeat Steppenwolf in the film's climax, which is a real paint-by-numbers and all-too easily resolved conclusion. It never feels like the CGI danger is truly real, and nothing feels like it's at stake. I will say I was given a chuckle when Bruce Wayne makes a typical hammy, virtue-signaling Hollywood remark to Aquaman about global warming and the possibility of the sea boiling. Then in the next scene, he's flying in his massive private jet. That's precisely the kind of hypocrisy we get from Hollywood elites these days. Aquaman is portrayed by Jason Momoa, who essentially is playing Ronan again from Stargate Atlantis. The Flash, for all intents and purposes, is the film's comic relief, but without actually being funny, and it seems like Ezra Miller is kind of playing himself. Wonder Woman is played very well by Gal Gadot, and I think the actress injects more character into Diana Prince than is actually on the page. Cyborg is fairly forgettable, but it's Batman who again steals the show, just as he did in Batman vs. Superman. He's the character we're really drawn to. And as I mentioned in my review of that film, I wasn't a believer in Ben Affleck's ability to portray Bruce Wayne and the Dark Knight in a believable way, and I was happy to say then that I was wrong. He does a solid job in this movie also. As the only human character that's genuinely vulnerable due to his lack of superpowers, Batman is the one we really care for the most. This is what makes him more heroic than the rest of the team. He actually could die, so he has to fight that little bit harder, use his ingenuity, resources, and technology to outwit the bad guys. We do get one scene with him and Diana Prince in which his mortality is discussed. He's badly bruised and with a dislocated arm, 20 years of putting his body on the line for Gotham finally catching up with him. But this isn't explored enough in the movie. It might have been the heart of the film, but in the end, screen time has to be divided between 6 primary characters. Ignore the critic reviews for this film. The audience reviews are far more accurate. This film does not deserve the scorn it's receiving. I mean, it's not great, it's just okay. But it's certainly no worse than any of the other recent superhero outings you've seen. And if you enjoy Avengers and Wonder Woman and films like that, I don't see any reason why you won't be entertained by Justice League. These films fit within a safe and predictable superhero genre all of their own, and your expectations have to be set low when watching them, I think. It's mindless escapism, a cash cow franchise aimed at selling toys and video games to kids, family movies just in time for the Christmas. Nothing you haven't seen before, and for that reason, I don't really think it's worth going to the cinema for. It's a DVD affair, if I'm honest.